Hey guys, appreciate you praying for me. As most of you know, I'm traveling today and going to be gone today and tomorrow and Thursday. My plans are to be back Friday. I hope that that will work for Southwest Airlines. You know, they've been having some issues lately. We looked at that one day last week when we were doing CNN 10, and they were telling about some of the cancellations and delays. So hopefully that won't happen to me. So what you need to do is you need to have 6.2 open and follow along. We're going to do just like we do in class. If I were present, we're going to work through this PowerPoint. I'm going to talk to you about some things about the central provinces of Canada today. You're going to fill in the notes as we go forward, okay? So first of all, let's just take a look at the map of Canada again. Once again, I know you've already taken the map quiz, but it doesn't hurt to review, just to remind ourselves of all of these different provinces and territories. Remember, there are 10 provinces in Canada and 3 territories. And so we'll just start over here. So this is what? If you want to say it out loud, you can. British Columbia. This would be Alberta. This would be Saskatchewan. This would be Manitoba. This would be Ontario. Right here we have Quebec. This is Newfoundland and Labrador. Down here we have New Brunswick. You know, it's bordered by Maine. You can see the outline of Maine there. This is Nova Scotia, and this is Prince Edward Island. By the way, we learned that New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland and Labrador, those 4 provinces, we have a name for those provinces. Do you remember what they are? You can say it out loud. Maritime provinces. Those are the maritime provinces of Canada. All right, then we have 3 territories that we've already learned on the map. We haven't done the PowerPoint for it yet, but we've learned at least as we were working on our map. So here you have Yukon, the Yukon Territory. This is the Northwest Territories. And then finally here you have the largest of the territories, and it is called Nunavut. Nunavut. And by the way, we also could just make note of this. This is Baffin Island, which is, of course, the largest island in Canada. You can see how large it is compared to all these other islands. Okay, here's just your regular map of Canada. You can see again the names of the maritime provinces. All right, so what we want to focus on today are these 2 provinces, the province of Quebec and the province of Ontario. That's our focus. So we start by just making note of this. Most Canadian cities are on the southern strip of the nation. And you can see why when you read why they would do this when you read the rest of the statement, where the temperatures are less severe. So if you visited Canada, you would find that a great majority of the population, most of the population, most of the Canadian cities you can see are located close to the United States Canadian border. And a lot of that has to do with temperature. Doesn't mean that there aren't people living up here in the territories. Certainly there are. There are some significant sized towns even in the territories. But for the most part, a majority of the Canadian population lives within 100 miles of this border. And again, that has to do with climate. The climate's much more bearable near the border. All right. Now, the 2 central provinces that we're going to be looking at, as I said a moment ago, are going to be Quebec, which is right here, and then Ontario. All right. Well, as far as Quebec's history is concerned, the first thing we need to notice is this, that it was once known as New France. Now, you may recognize that. That goes back to the days when European countries were first beginning to colonize North America. And so you had other places that were colonized by the English, for example, places like, well, New York, but some of you may remember that before New York was New York, it was something else. It was actually New Amsterdam, colonized by the Dutch, and then the English came and took it. But New York was a colony, and it bears that name, New. We've already talked about the fact that a lot of the northeastern section of the modern United States is called New England, and that was a term given to it actually by John Smith. Well, here we have New France. Quebec was called New France. And the people that lived in New France were fur traders and pioneers. There weren't a lot of them in the early days. It was not as populated as the American colonies. And again, part of that's going to be because of the terrain and because of the climate. It's very cold and tough living conditions in parts of the winter there in Quebec. The British came in later on in the area around Quebec, around New France, and established the Hudson Bay colony here on the Hudson Bay. In fact, you can see that one of the bays that's part of this larger bay bears the name of an English king, James Bay. Well, when the French lost the French and Indian War in the 18th century, 1757, 1763, when the French lost that war, they lost a lot of their holdings in this region. What's interesting is, well, we'll find this out again in just a minute. What's interesting is that there's still a lot of French influence in Quebec. One thing in particular we'll make note of in a minute. But still, when the French lost the French and Indian War, and remember, by the way, the French and Indian War, it did not get its name because the French were fighting the Indians. It was the French and several Indian tribes against the English and the colonists. This was before the United States became the United States. This is a war, you may recall, where George Washington got a lot of his uh, on the job training, so that later on, when he became the general of the Continental Army, he had gained a lot of experience through this war. Okay, but I digress. Back to this again. When the French lost this war, they lost a lot of their holdings in what they called New France, what we call Quebec. Now, I said that one of the things, and you can't see it behind this, and I apologize, but the official language of Quebec is French. And that's one of the things that, as I said a moment ago, they may have lost their holdings. The French may have lost a lot of holdings in Quebec. But one of the things that held on through the years has been their continuing to speak the French language. And so that is the official language of Quebec. You can see it here on this particular road sign. The St. Lawrence River, we can't talk about Quebec and really can't understand everything we need to understand about what goes on economically in Canada without understanding a little bit about the St. Lawrence River. You can see it's located right here, and it flows through Quebec and then forms part of the border of Ontario. To make the seaway navigable, well, let me make sure we made note of this. St. Lawrence River is one of the largest rivers in Canada. It's not the largest river in Canada. That actually belongs to the Mackenzie River, which is up in the territories. We'll have to talk about that at another time. But anyway, to make the St. Lawrence River navigable, remember, hey, this is a good time. Do you remember the ways that geographers, um, how they, what's the word I'm looking for? How they assess rivers? That's not the word that we used, but this a way in which they categorize rivers. Maybe that's the way we've been saying it. You remember that it has to do with length and drainage basin and discharge. Well, one of the ways that they assess rivers or categorize rivers is by navigability. Well, the Canadians had to do some things to help navigate the St. Lawrence River. So you could see here, they went in and built canals and then built some locks in order to help shipping go from this opening to the Atlantic Ocean all the way to Lake Ontario. Now, this is a picture then of a lock. And it's interesting how this works. What happens is this boat, this vessel will come into the lock. There's a gate back here that will close. And then they will flood that lock. And when they flood that lock, the water will rise up to here. You can actually see where the water level has been on these bricks. The water will rise here, and then the boat will go out the other end of the lock. And they have to do this at times on rivers because of sudden changes in the elevations of the river. So there'll be like a series of rapids or something. And so the ship won't be able to navigate that. They'll have to do some other things to get the ship up to deeper water. So here's a video that we've got that'll demonstrate this to you. If I can get it to work. Hopefully it will. Yeah, here we go. So if you turn this on, I hope it's going to work for us. Yeah, watch. So the ship will come in. You can see how they can lower the water level in that lock. They can open the gate. Ship will come in. And you can see that the next level, they're going to have to do something to get the ship up. So they'll drop the level here, raise the level here, open the gate. And then once again, they'll be able to do the same thing again. So this is how a series of locks can be used on a river in order to make it more navigable. We're not talking about the Panama Canal right now. If you know much about the Panama Canal, you know that they had to do something similar to this in order for the ships to be able to cross the Panamanian Isthmus. We'll talk more about that when we do our unit Middle America, but they had to do this same thing there in Panama. All right, let's see if I can get that back now. All right, very good. All right, so by the mid 1900s, when the size of ships exceeded the size of the canals, Canada and the United States actually joined forces and worked on what they called the St. Lawrence Seaway Project. And the reason both countries did this is pretty obvious. It was an economic help to both countries because both countries share the Great Lakes. And so it's very obvious that if both countries use the Great Lakes and need to get to the Atlantic Ocean, it would be important to do some things to make the St. Lawrence River more navigable. And so in the mid 1900s, that's exactly what they did. By the 1960s, full-sized ships were able to sail from the Atlantic all the way to Lake Superior. So imagine that. You got full-size ships coming in from the Atlantic over here, down the St. Lawrence, under Lake Ontario. Now they have to bypass Niagara River, and you know why. You've learned Niagara Falls is here. So they've built canals to connect Lake Ontario, Lake Erie. They've built other canals to connect Erie to Huron. But eventually these ships can make it all the way to Chicago, which is where here on Lake Michigan, or all the way to Duluth, Minnesota, which is located here on Lake Superior, and obviously also connect to other port cities along the coast of the Great Lakes. So it's a very important project that the United States and Canada took on. All right, next. Cities in the St. Lawrence Valley. Well, Quebec City is located in the St. Lawrence Valley. It, you can see, is the capital city of the province of Quebec. Montreal is another important city in the St. Lawrence Valley. Its name actually means Mount Royal, Montreal being the French term, and so it continues to carry that French name. And then many people that live in these St. Lawrence Valley cities are bilingual. This is certainly true in Montreal. And of course, again, that's because French is the official language of Quebec, but many people speak English there as well. All right. Oh, and students, I've had students in the past point out that the amusement park that's here on this island that's in the river. So this is the St. Lawrence River, and there's an island in the river. Actually, from what I remember, the beginnings of Montreal are actually on this island, and later, because it was easier to defend in the days of exploration when the French were first settling this area, the island was easier to defend than trying to defend the mainland. But now, obviously, much of the city has moved to the mainland. All right. Well, what about Ontario? We've looked at Quebec. Ontario then is this other province. Also, you can see it borders on the Hudson Bay, and then it shares a common border with the United States. Ontario is the most populous province in Canada. More people live in Ontario than any other province. Its people have a strong British heritage. So, unlike Quebec, which has a strong French heritage, a French past, Ontario, different. Its heritage is primarily British. Ontario, the word is not British. You can see it comes from an Iroquois word. The Iroquois were a tribe of Indians in North America. And so the Iroquois word Ontario means shining waters. So this is Canada's population center. Ontario is especially southern Ontario. Look at the map. Look at all the major cities that are located here in this area. Places like Toronto, which we'll talk more about in a minute. Windsor. Windsor is right across the United States-Canadian border from Detroit. You have some other important cities as well. You can see them. Most people in Canada live between Lake Huron, which is here, and Lake Ontario, which is here. So this area is a heavily populated area. And again, it's as far south as you can get in Canada. Well, the city of Toronto. I've seen Toronto. It was about that big. I think I told you guys that my wife and I several years ago went to Niagara Falls, and then we drove up to Lake Ontario, and we were on the United States side of the lake, and we could look across Lake Ontario, and you could see faintly the outline of Toronto. You could make out this Space Needle. I forget what the exact title of this is, but this Space Needle looking building, you can make it out in the distance, and you could make out you could see the skyline of Toronto. It is the capital city of Ontario, and it is the largest metropolitan area in the nation. So Toronto is their New York City, so to speak. Okay. It is also a financial or commercial center in the country. So a lot of banking, a lot of investment firms are found in the city of Toronto. Something I didn't put in the notes, but I learned later, is that it is an international city. Lots of people from lots of places around the world come to live in Toronto. Um, there's a significant population from India in Toronto. Some of you know that I have friends that are in India, and I found out that there are lots of people from India that have relocated to Toronto. Well, it says click on the picture for a video, so let's see what we've got here. I think you'll enjoy this.
I want to leap over buildings, want to fly over the shores, save the people from the villains, catch the crooks who rob the stores, write my name upon the sky, and when you call me, I'll be there, faster than a lightning flash, rushing through the cool night air. Oh. So start ignition, count to zero. I just wanna be a superhero. Oh. With fearless thoughts, emotions swirl.
So this is the St. Lawrence River in the background.
Saves the world, yeah.
Oh, excuse me, Lake Ontario in the background. I'm sorry.
The world is full of super problems, so we made up a Superman. But he is just imaginary, and here we stand without a plan, with new ideas and innovation. Man still cannot tame creation, and though I'm told I'll never fly, that doesn't mean that I won't try. Oh. So start ignition, count to zero. I just wanna be a superhero. With fearless thoughts, emotions swirl. I wanna be the man that saves the world. So start ignition, count to zero. I just wanna be a superhero. With fearless thoughts, emotions swirl. I wanna be the man that saves the world.
All right, so it's called the CN Tower. That's it. And so it's in Toronto, and that's called the Edge Walk. Pretty neat. Okay, we're going to move back up here into the slides. As far as Ottawa, Ottawa is the national capital of Canada. It's located in the province of Ontario. This is a picture of Parliament Hill in Ottawa. So this is where their legislative body meets. Need to talk to you for just a minute about something called the British North America Act. You can see it passed in 1867. This is the act passed by the British Parliament that established what is today, or established the foundation for what is today Canada. You can see that what it did is it brought together, it made a confederation that would be a union of four provinces: Ontario, New Brunswick, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. That's how Canada began, by bringing those four provinces together. As far as the Dominion of Canada, you can see that the government in Canada is patterned after the British Parliament. So they have a chief executive. The prime minister is their chief executive in their country. I'll give you just a second to type that out. Canada has chosen to remain in the British Commonwealth. So what that means is they recognize Elizabeth II as their queen. Now, they have a federal system, and I'm going to have to make that smaller so we can see it. Let's see if I can do that. Here we go. Let me get back down here. Just hang on a minute. I was hiding part of the notes. Here we go. They have a federal system, which is a national government that shares power with provinces. That's the same thing we have here in the United States. We have a national government that shares power with the states. That's what federalism is. Don't know if you remember us talking about that, but federalism is when you have one central government and then you have individual state governments, or in the case of Canada, individual provincial governments. And then you can see here that each province, let me see, I'm going to pull this down. There we go. We can do it that way. Each province has a premier. Now, in the United States, we call the leaders of states governors, but in Canada, they call their governing official in a province, they call him a premier. I don't know if I can get my picture back up now, and that's fine. You've seen me. You know what I look like. All right, so let's pull that back up then. Here we go. I'll give you just another couple of seconds to get that typed in. All right, let's move on to the next slide then. After the War of 1812, which you will remember was a war between the United States and Britain, well, these two countries, Britain and the United States, agreed to demilitarize the Great Lakes, which means they agreed not to keep navies and armies and forts on the Great Lakes. They left it open so that Canadians could come to the United States and people in the United States could go into Canada. That's why we need to define demilitarize. It means to remove all forts and soldiers from a common border. If you want to see a militarized zone today, travel to a place like South Korea. And as you go to the northern border of South Korea, you look across that border into North Korea, and that's a demilitarized zone. A militarized zone, not a demilitarized. All right. Well, you know what? Let me. I just realized I need to say that a little bit differently. You do have a small. Now that I'm talking about North and South Korea, you do have a small area between North and South Korea that does not have military. That is demilitarized. But on the edge of that zone, uh, South Korea has a full military established there, and North Korea has a full military presence established on their side of the zone. So that what I said at the beginning wasn't exactly accurate. So hopefully you follow me when I say that. All right, here we go. Canada has never had a civil war. Good for them. But there have been times when the union of its provinces has been historically fragile. Uh, the it wasn't all that long ago that there was a vote for Quebec to withdraw from the Canadian Confederation and be its own independent country, but the people of Quebec voted to stay in the Confederation in Canada. All right, that's going to take care then of this particular set of notes. So hopefully you were able to get all that done, and I will end this video, and we will talk to you tomorrow. We'll do another video tomorrow. Okay.